everyone. This is Stefania speaking. We're just seeing a bunch of people come on right now, so we're going to give a few more minutes for people who are just joining. So bear with us for 1 or 2 minutes. Just in case you didn't hear that message, we are going to be starting the webinar in about 2 minutes. Thank you so much. Hello and welcome. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Stefania Sigurdsson-Forbes, and I'm the Senior Marketing Director here at FranchiseBlast. So we know that you're all really busy right now, so really appreciate you giving us a few moments. I can see there's a whole bunch of people joining, but we do have a bit of an introductory segment, so hopefully they won't miss too much. But we will have a recording of this webinar after it's done. So this webinar is going to be about how to comply with regulations, how to manage remotely, and how to use your current tool set in order to do all of the above. So we created this webinar based on customer requests, and I imagine that you're all going through a lot right now, and just being here today shows your dedication. So today, I'm joined by 2 people. First, by Dean Hatzatheodosio, the Senior Director of Business Development, and Mark Bowen, our Senior Director. You'll definitely be in good hands with both of these. Before we get started, I just wanted to get you used to this pane. So essentially, there's these new tabs that you're going to see on the top right. And I can see some people are using chat already. And then if you click over, you'll see questions. And then beside that, you'll see polls. So we're going to actually be doing polls throughout this webinar just to keep it super interactive and so you guys can all learn from each other. So let's take a look at our agenda for today. We hope to keep this short, between 35 and 45 minutes. We're first going to explore a model for crisis response. Then we're going to look at self-assessments, which is a way for you to monitor what's going on at locations without being there. Third, we'll see polling, which is a way to monitor how many responses that you're getting and more. We'll take a look at important reports that will help you during this time. And we'll also talk about how FranchiseBlast can help. And then finally, we have a community portion where we're going to hear from Dean about how we're creating a community here. So Dean, why don't you take it away?
Thanks, Stefania, and thanks everyone for attending this important webinar. We hope that you'll find it informative and insightful of how you can take advantage of your existing FranchiseBlast deployment to assist you and your teams during what is probably one of the most difficult times I think that everybody has likely faced, at least in the last few years. It is a little bit out of the ordinary for sure for a lot of people, and I know for myself, I wake up every morning thinking I'm going to wake up in a dream, but it is what it is. We'll deal with it, and we will get through this. So as we get going throughout the webinar, and as we start here, I wanted to identify 3 key points that define a crisis. An emotionally significant event or radical change of status in a person's life, a decisive moment in time, or an unstable or crucial time or state of affairs in which a decisive change is impending. So if there was any doubt in your mind that there was a crisis going on, well, I think this nice little Webster's dictionary defines it nicely for us. The reason why I wanted to define a crisis is that this slide from McKinsey and Company suggests that in times of crisis, you need to put together a team of people from a cross-section of your business to come up with a plan of action to address the crisis and determine how best to assist your franchisees, your people, and your business as a whole. This team is going to work on various areas. They're going to stay current on government and regulatory happenings. They're going to find out more about the current state of the crisis, updates from media outlets and other areas of information, determine key actions that may take into effect based upon market or world triggers, things that force action on behalf of your organization, become fluid in the ever-changing landscape. You must be changing your approach as news gets released. And the reason why we wanted to bring this up is to ensure that your organization as a whole, as well as your operations team, is obviously you're all taking a plan, but we wanted to make sure that this becomes relevant. That having this team in place is very, very important to not only get through this crisis, but also to help your franchisees as they manage through this. So as Stefania mentioned, we're going to be conducting some surveys during the webinar. You'll have about 30 to 45 seconds to answer them. So now's a good time so we could do our first survey. So our first survey is around strategic planning. So has your organization set up a team to address the current situation? Yes, we have set up a task force and are addressing the situation. No, we are still reacting to the crisis as it evolves, or I am not sure. So if you go to your poll section, you can see the buttons there, and you can go ahead and submit your vote. So just want to make sure that we can that everybody knows where the poll section is. So that you'll see the chat, and then there's questions, and then to the right is polls. Okay, so based on the results, we have about 64% of the organizations on this webinar say yes, we have a plan. Responses are still coming in. No, we are in reaction mode is hovering at around 27%, and we have about 7% that are with other. So that gives you a good idea of where we're at as far as franchising goes, and as far as your system and your organization might be. So now you have a high-level plan on how to address the crisis with your franchisees, the market, and the strategy moving forward. The next step is to address 3 key areas. The first one is while you might have a crisis nerve center team, now you need a franchise operations task force. The difference between this task force and the crisis response team is that this group is going to focus solely on franchise operations. How is this crisis affecting franchise operations as a whole? What hard decisions need to be made to be able to be nimble and react to the crisis? What will you be instructing your franchisees as they look to you for guidance? So this team may represent all areas of your business, not just operations. You may have some from executive, from franchise development, from marketing. But essentially, you're to get together, run scenarios, analyze the finances, gather the data from your franchisees, communicate, and make decisions for a plan moving forward. A great saying that I've heard in the last couple of weeks is prepare for the unmanageable and manage the unavoidable. I really like that quote. It really stuck with me, especially in a time like this. So again, I'm prepare for the unmanageable and manage the unavoidable. Just something, a little food for thought there that maybe you guys can take back to your organizations. The second thing you need to do is increase your communications. So during times of crisis, you need to step up communications. Some of our customers, some of you who I've spoken with, are communicating twice per week or even every morning through email, Zoom calls, texts, webinars, whatever avenue you may choose. Your operations team used to have a regular cadence of communication with franchisees, but now is the time to ensure that everyone is communicated with regularly and to step up the frequency. Most important is to ensure franchisees are communicating back, not only when they need something, but just to check in for support and provide updates to you as to what is happening in their neighborhood as well as with their business. Lastly, you need to use the tools that you have at your disposal to take advantage of the investments you have made already. Analyze your technology stack. What can you repurpose, and which companies can be nimble enough to meet your new operational processes? Which ones have features that you can take advantage of to communicate with franchisees? Collect key information and data from the field when you don't have your field team currently visiting. Using technology to temporarily modify your operational procedures is the easiest thing you can do during this time. As you change your processes to address the crisis, your technology should support you and your franchisees during this time. And just to, I guess, reiterate how much of a community that we are. So one of the key advantages of franchising versus being a completely independent business owner is that in franchising, there's a team of people that are there to coach franchisees and assist them in all ways to ensure that they are successful. One of those teams is your field operations team, which is such an important cog in the wheel of franchising. On-site support, performance visits or field audits, business planning, answering questions of the franchisees, helping at store and franchisee level operations. There's someone specifically assigned to that location or that franchisee to assist in various ways. So during this time where field operations might be at a standstill or might be reduced, does this mean that you need to stop coaching? No, at least not from our perspective. If anything, you step up your coaching. While remote, you could still do weekly check-ins. As mentioned before, you step up those communications through various avenues. Again, Zoom, text messaging, webinars, whatever the case is. The key is to be honest with the current state, be transparent, and ensure franchisees know the situation that they and the franchisor are facing. So we're going to get to our second survey now. So this is for on-site or field visits. So again, how are you currently managing on-site field visits? We have stopped field visits and check-ins entirely. We still have some people in the field. We are only doing remote check-ins. We have not addressed this process yet. So I'll give you a little bit of time here to be able to fill in the information. All right, as the results are still coming in, business as usual is hovering at around 6-7%. Remote check-ins is up at around 36%. Reduced field visits, so still in field but just not going out as often, is around 21%, and taking a break from field visits entirely is at around 36% as well. So interesting that taking a break and remote check-ins are I'm not going to say neck and neck anymore as more people are filling in the poll, but you're seeing a lot more field visits taking a break. So as I mentioned before, taking advantage of your technology is critical and key during this time of crisis. And as many of you are very familiar with the FranchiseBlast platform, there's a number of tools and features that you can easily take advantage of. So within the FranchiseBlast platform, there are several features that, as I mentioned, that are available to you and can assist in continuing your franchise operations. The first one is self-assessments. So during regular times, you conduct field visits to check in on the franchisee and see how things are going. Typically, you would supplement those visits with franchisee self-assessments. You can use franchisee self-assessments to still obtain necessary data from the field and store-level operations and franchisee information. These assessments still provide you with a score and also provide key insights into their business. The self-assessment should be a shorter version of your audit, but may perhaps have a flavor or have key COVID-19 items listed that may pertain specifically to your business. So from that perspective, we have some customers that are using them. They've taken some initiatives to help franchisees increase revenues in different ways. So that's selling gift cards online in advance. So they're using self-assessments to find out in advance how many gift cards were sold, how many did you sell this time, where were they sold to, et cetera, and what was the amount, so that they can keep track of the financials. The next feature you can easily implement and take advantage of is polling. Polling is likely the easiest way to communicate with your franchisees. They don't need to log on to a platform. They simply receive an email, text, or message that can be customized to the reason for the poll. So for example, it could be a COVID-19 daily feedback. The poll should be broken up into simple, easy to read sections with easy questions for the franchisee to respond to. In a typical environment, you would use polling to obtain key monthly, weekly, or daily information, such as monthly financials, previous month financials, daily line checks, customer counts, etc. But in this time of crisis, you may want to learn, are they operating in reduced hours? Have they followed proper COVID-19 cleaning precautions? Please take a picture of your COVID-19 cleaning procedures. Have they reduced staff even further than what they may have before? So polling is a nice, easy way to be able to do that check-in. And it's, as you can see from the slide, it's franchisor initiated. Again, the point of both the self-assessment and the polling is to collect data. In a time when remote support, as we just saw, is the remote support is the only option available. The difference between the two, again, is self-assessment requires the franchisee to log on to the platform and kick off the questionnaire. Polling pushes out the questionnaire to the franchisee, and they simply click a link to be able to submit the data. Here at FranchiseBlast, we've done a significant amount of research in finding key resources for you to be able to address the COVID-19 crisis. These are government recommendations on how to best address the situation. We've researched both US and Canadian websites and government agencies. I would strongly encourage you to take their recommendations and then enhance them with your own questions and items that might be specific to your own businesses. The one that I would like to highlight specifically is the International Chamber of Commerce, as their resource addresses the crisis in its entirety. From, as we discussed before at the beginning of the webinar, putting together a team of people to be able to address the crisis, as well as communicating to your staff, communicating out to the public, putting a plan together. I encourage you to visit our website for additional information. We have a nice, easy to click banner that you can access, and it brings you to all the resources that are available to you. These resources are again readily available on our website. And if by chance you'd like specific information or would like to be able to set up a call, feel free to reach out to myself, Stefania, or Mark, and we're happy to walk you through some of these items. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mark. Mark will walk you through the actual demo of self-assessments and polling of how you can use it. And again, if there are any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat room.
Great, thanks, team. So my name is Mark Bowen. I'm the Senior Director of Customer Success at FranchiseBlast. What this really means is that I help franchisors to implement new processes that utilize FranchiseBlast and provide all of the training and support that's needed along the way. So as Dean mentioned, there are two places in the system that allow you to support your franchisees remotely. And I'll cover those in a high level on the demo here, but if you are interested to learn more and to see if it's a fit for your organization, there'll be a link at the end of the webinar. You can respond to that, and we'd be happy to set up a call to give you a full demo and explain exactly how it would work in your context during your process. So the first module we'll cover is self-assessments. So for anybody who's using FranchiseBlast's Field Audits app, it works very similar. So you import your questionnaires into FranchiseBlast. You can do this by contacting the support team or using the self-serve tools in the system. And once they're loaded into FranchiseBlast, you have the ability to make changes to these questionnaires on the fly, which is really important because the situation is changing so rapidly that self-assessments is a good tool for sharing new checklists for new processes and procedures and making sure that the checklist that the franchisees are filling out is the most updated version. But the main difference between self-assessments and, just give me 1 second here, between self-assessments and field audits is that self-assessments are filled out by the franchisees or the store managers, whereas the Field Audits app, it's the FBCs or the district managers that are assessing how the franchisees are doing. So self-assessments basically just takes that same process and it makes it available at the franchisee level. So if the franchisees want to give their store managers access, they can have a login to FranchiseBlast and be able to access any one of these questionnaires and perform it at the location. So from the franchisee's perspective, it's very easy to launch a self-assessment. So they basically just select the location that they're filling it out at. If they're just a single unit owner, they just have access to that single location. Same with a store manager. And there's the launch a self-assessment button at the top of the page. And this is accessed through a laptop, a mobile device like a cell phone or a tablet as well. They choose the checklist that they want to perform, and they can easily go through, fill out all of the answers, take any pictures or leave any comments related to any of these questions and submit it to the head office. So once the self-assessment is submitted, we can also set up some notifications so that the FBC or the VP of operations is notified every time a franchisee or store manager hits submit. So this is really important. So if your field team has reduced the amount of field visits that they're performing, or if they're not able to travel right now, they can still encourage the franchisees within their territory to log into FranchiseBlast, fill out some of these COVID-19 checklists, and they can monitor the results and see what's happening. So again, just like the Field Audits app, the results from the self-assessments can be analyzed in the Global Performance tab, very similar to Field Audits. So we can take all of the self-assessments that are submitted by your franchisees and store managers, we can roll them up into a single report, and then you can slice and dice them to look at the information by a certain date range or by a store group. The nice thing about this is that it just allows you to get an understanding of maybe some of the new processes that the franchisees haven't implemented or having trouble implementing at their location. So I know it was just a high-level overview, but we're going to have another poll pop up, and we just want to get an understanding of, based off of what you've learned about self-assessments, do you think that this can assist you in your current situation? So the responses that are available is yes, self-assessments can assist, and I will be implementing them. No, this will not work in our current franchise operations during this crisis. And the third option is we're still determining how to proceed, and we'll review and reach out at a later date. So the responses that we received, so they're still coming in, but 15% of the people on the call today already have self-assessments today for COVID-19, and equal amount want to turn on self-assessments. And there's 8% that believe that self-assessments wouldn't be able to help them right now. And the remaining portion are still deciding whether it's a fit for them or not. And that's something I'd be happy to schedule a quick call, review it in more detail, and see how it would work in your operations. So now we'll talk about polling. So polling starts out the same as self-assessments, where you import your questionnaires and your checklists into the system, but instead of making them available to the franchisees and having them log into FranchiseBlast sort of when they feel is necessary and fill them out, you're able to send them to your franchisees and the store managers at a precise time, and then monitor who is filling out those checklists and the results from them as well. And the way that it works, so once we import the checklist into FranchiseBlast, we basically define who we want to poll. So we create a store group that either contains all of your locations or just a subset of the locations. We choose the questionnaire that we want to use, and then we put some context about the poll. So when the franchisee receives it, they have a little bit of information in terms of what the checklist is about and why they should be filling it out at their location. For setting up the poll, the next thing we determine is when will it be sent. So we can set up a daily poll that's sent out in the morning to all of the franchisees. So we could say on a daily basis, we can schedule this poll to send on the following times. So this one just sends on a daily basis at 9:45, but we can put in as many times here as we'd like if you wanted to do a 3 times a day critical control checklist, for example. We can also set the time zone that the poll will be sent out as well. And we also have a time limit in terms of when the franchisees or the store managers can submit a poll. So if it's a daily checklist that they're supposed to be filling out every morning, well, then maybe you'll stop receiving answers 18 hours after it's launched, because anytime after that, it's sort of stale information and the point is missed at that point anyway. So everything about the polling application so far is really about making it easy to ensure that franchisees are carrying out new processes and reporting some information back to the franchisor. And one of the main areas that we do that is with the notifications. So the first notification that we would set up for every poll would be an on-launch notification. So this is saying that everybody at the store level would be notified by email at 9:45 every day to complete the poll. We can specify to say just the store managers or just the franchisees if we want to as well. And then we can build out as many custom reminders as we would like after the launch. So this example poll here has 3 custom reminders. And what it's saying is that the first reminder is sent 1 hour after the initial email is sent to franchisees. The next reminder is sent 2 hours after the first reminder, and then there's another reminder that's sent 2 hours later. So what we've done so far is we putting the questionnaires into the polling application and distributing that information to the franchisees. From the franchisee's perspective, it's really easy to complete a poll because they receive an email when the poll needs to be completed. So if it's a daily checklist that you're sending to all your franchisees at 9 o'clock in the morning, well, they open up the email and they see a link in the email. They click on the link and it automatically opens up the checklist for them to complete. So they don't have to log into FranchiseBlast, remember their password. It's just access through the email, and same thing with the store manager as well. So this is another side of polling that really brings a lot of value, especially when you're thinking about using this process across an organization that has over 50 locations or maybe 500 locations, where you're requesting information from the franchisees, you're getting some information back, but it's nice to know exactly what's happening and who has submitted the information so far. So after a poll is launched, you can check on the status. You can click on the poll. So this is representing the poll that we had sent to all of the franchisees yesterday. And if I was a VP of operations and I had access to all of the stores in FranchiseBlast, then basically this would tell me that 72% of all of the franchisees have submitted their daily poll so far. If this is a FBC or a district manager that's accessing FranchiseBlast, they only have access to their own territory. Well, this lets them know 72% of the franchisees within their territory have submitted information so far. It lets us know that the email was sent on launch. It lets us know which notifications have been sent so far and the ones that are still scheduled to go out to the franchisees and to the locations. So beyond that, we can drill into the results. So the previous page showed us that 72% of the franchisees had submitted the information, but we can go to a results tab and it lets us know exactly location by location, who submitted information yet, who hasn't even opened their poll. And a really great feature about the polling application is that the franchisee, if they start filling out some information in the poll, it saves locally to their device and backs up to FranchiseBlast automatically. So if you're an FBC and you're supporting your franchisees and seeing what's been submitted so far, well, they could see that the Beverly Hills location, it's only 61% completed their poll. They could actually open up that result, see what information they've submitted so far, reach out to the location and basically ask if they're having trouble submitting the poll and offer some help. So on a daily poll basis, you could go to the results for what information has been collected so far. So this is a COVID-19 related checklist that's being sent to all of the franchisees on a daily basis. And basically what we're seeing here is that 25% of the locations do not have hand sanitizer available for the customers. And only half of the location have the updated hand washing procedures posted in the public washroom. So more tools to manage the collection of information and just making it easy for the field team to know exactly what's going on with the polling checklist is we can add a widget onto the main dashboard that shows you the poll response rate, and we can set a time frame for it. It could be this month, it could be all of the polls that were sent so far this week, or all of the polls that were sent for that particular day. So as an FBC, when they log into the system, they'd see the list of all the locations in their territory. They would see their poll response rate for the month or for the week, and they could click on any one of those locations to see exactly what's been submitted so far and what's been missed. So we're going to send out another survey, and this is just asking what you've seen so far about polling. Do you think this could assist in your current situation? So one of the responses is yes, polling can assist and we'll be implementing them. No, this will not work for our current franchise operations during this crisis. And the third option, we're still determining how to proceed and we'll review with the team and reach out at a later date. So far the responses is 54% still deciding. 38% want to turn on the COVID-19 poll. 8% would not help them right now, and 0% are saying that they already have polling for COVID-19.
Hey, Mark, this is Steph. I just noticed that we got a question in here from Colin Douglas. It says, we have to contact you to set up the poll questions, or is this something we can do ourselves?
Yeah, it's a good question. So for the initial setup of polling, it's always best to work with the FranchiseBlast support team. We'll basically work with you. We'll talk through which questionnaires you want imported, how you want them sent to the franchisees. We'll make sure everybody has the correct permissions, that the people who are using the system understand how to roll it out across the organization, and really provide that support based off of previous experience launching this at franchises. So, but once that initial setup and understanding is completed, then you do have the option to go in and set up and change any of the polls through your own account. So you do have the ability to do it. It's just that we provide some extra support initially to make sure it's as successful as possible. Okay, so I'll continue on with the presentation. Feel free to keep asking questions. Again, we'll have a link at the end of the webinar where you can reach out and schedule time to have a deeper dive in some of these areas. I just want to talk a little bit about the report. So with polling and even with self-assessments, it's a great way to distribute new processes and manage those processes across your franchise network. But you also get some valuable information and some valuable reporting at the end of the day. So all of a sudden, your franchisees are submitting information, letting you know what's happening at the location level, and you can run reports to identify where some of the weaknesses are, because you still need to keep on top of things like food safety violations and standard operating procedures. But you can discover key weaknesses and see how those are evolving or changing during the current situation. And then also finding gaps in the supply chain. So some people are relying on maybe gloves or hand sanitizer or other parts of their food chain are affected. And it's nice to have a poll where you're keeping a pulse to make sure that the franchisees can get the supplies that they need to remain open. And the other thing that we can do with polling and even with any of the reports in FranchiseBlast is that we can create store groups based off of level of openness. So, and this is can also be applied to service-based franchises, where if there's a change in the way that you deliver your product or your service, we can set up groups in FranchiseBlast to identify which location is operating at which capacity and how they're delivering their service. An additional benefit of using polling and self-assessments is because you're relying on the franchisees to self-report, there's ability to force them to upload some pictures. So if you want to see pictures of the location to make sure that it's as clean as it needs to be, to verify that the right signage is being posted, to see that things like there's social distancing guidelines laid out on the floor and other recommendations are being carried through at the store level. You can have the franchisees upload a picture to verify some of those areas. And then you have a picture feed where you can literally scroll through all of the pictures that are related to a certain answer in a poll or in a self-assessment. So I'm going to pass it back over to Dean, and he's going to explain how FranchiseBlast can help and what we're offering. Dean, I think your microphone is muted. Okay, so Dean's webinar tab has froze. He just let us know in a separate chat. So I'll carry on the presentation, and if his computer unfreezes on him, I'll let him resume. So basically what FranchiseBlast is offering is we're offering the use of self-assessments and polling for free until June 30th, 2020. And depending on the situation, we may extend that. So we realize that a lot of our clients are in a tough spot, and they need ways to be able to make sure that their franchisees are operating as safe and profitable as possible, and that the current or the traditional methods of doing that are just not available anymore. So we want to continue to provide value and support during this situation. So no matter what your package is or what you're paying for today, the self-assessments and the polling modules are available to you on an unlimited basis. So unlimited users, we only charge on a location basis anyway. They can do as many self-assessments or as many polls as they want until June 30th at the very least. And there's no additional charge to use that product. So if after the event and things are back to normal, if you decide you just want to go back to doing regular field visits, you no longer need self-assessments or polling, that's totally fine. We can shut it off at that point, and you can decide to go back to your regular operations or continue to use the self-assessments in the polling module. So one of the things that we thought could provide value and we wanted to set up is a community within FranchiseBlast. So one of the things that we've noticed from talking to franchises is that they like to hear about and learn about each other's experiences and practices and share what's worked and what hasn't, and to have a community to be able to bounce some ideas off of. So we decided, why don't we take an opportunity to set up a chat through Slack, invite the people who are at the webinar today and some others that are a part of the FranchiseBlast family, and have an open chat where people can post questions or post some ideas that they've came up with to help them deal with the situation. And finally, if anybody has any questions, wants to set up a demo, or just has questions in general, Dean is always available. His email address is dean@franchiseblast.com.
Hi there. Just to wrap up, I just wanted to let everyone know that we do have a download available on our website. So we're just setting that up right now. And essentially this download will allow you access to all of the checklists that we discussed. The checklists are also loaded up into FranchiseBlast. So you can simply send email to support@franchiseblast.com, and there we can copy that over for you. So I'm just going to post that live. And Mark, do you have anything else to add?
Nope.
Awesome. So, oh, hello, Dean.
Hi, everybody. Sorry about that. My computer froze and then just decided to bring me back in. But
nice.
Now I'm in as Jason Keeley. So, all right then.
Okay, great. Yeah, we just closed out the webinar, Dean.
Okay,
so
perfect.
I don't know if there's anything else that you want to add, or if we're okay to end it there.
No, I'm sure it was well taken care of. So thanks everybody for attending. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure, as Mark mentioned, if you guys want more information or you'd like to contact us just to have a quick chat about setting up polling or self-assessments, feel free to reach out to us directly. We're happy to have that conversation and be able to help you out through this crisis. And thanks, Stefania, for setting this up also.
No problem. Thank you to all. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.